Action. Oh, welcome everybody to this October 2024 Talk of the Town. We are here in a brand new space, which I'm often here. Sorry about that. In a brand new space.
Yep. Well, not a brand new space.
Well, no, actually, one of the oldest.
Probably the oldest building in
Pearland. We're just going to say the oldest building in Pearland. Yeah. It is the train depot that's right next door to City Hall.
Right.
You're seeing this for the first time.
Right.
We're inviting you into what is the podcast/studio space. We're still setting it up.
Correct.
But it's in good enough shape that you can see the wainscoted walls and furniture and the microphones and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So welcome.
It's a great space. In fact, I walked in. It's the first time I've walked in quite some time, and I remember when the Chamber of Commerce was located here, and of course they left this building after Hurricane Ike because of the damage that was done to it. And
so it's been at least 16 years.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I was walking the guys through, and the board meeting room is in the back. In fact, the large board meeting, the table is still in there.
Still have the table, yeah.
And then this used to be an office, and then kind of a work area and restrooms, and a couple of offices towards the front. And I spent a lot of time in this building, and it's pretty cool to see it back in use. Just for people to know. In communications at the city, there are what they call PEG funds, and you can get into that.
Public information, education, and government. And
Correct.
It's a cable. It's every cable subscription. There's a franchise fee that comes off, and it supports our channel that all of this content goes on.
Yeah. So instead of local sales tax or local property tax dollars going for certain things in communications, a lot of what they're able to do with equipment and spaces like this. So we use some of those PEG funds to shore up this building and get it back into use. And the goal is to get it and have communications and have their offices back in here. And we have great spaces like this to come live and do videos and various things like that, and putting a true historic building back into use and people in it and using it all the time and all those kind of things, which will make sure that the maintenance and all that stuff will go. The good news is we got a lot of that shoring up, new roof and all those kind of things done before Beryl.
Before Beryl, yeah.
So I don't know what the building would have looked like, had it not been done before Beryl.
Well, and we've started using the space, for podcasts and videos and things like that. And I don't want to date you too much, but wild guess, when do you think the last time you were at a chamber event? Could you pinpoint the year?
So it would have been so Ike was in 2008.
Right.
So
maybe 2007.
September of 2008. I was probably in this building in 2008.
Oh yeah.
So think about that, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
When was the last time I was in this? Well, I don't know. I'd been in this building since that time. I think I came in when we were looking at the group that was putting it together to restore it.
Yes.
I think I came through, that would have been 18, 19 maybe, and I know all that got put on hold.
We did the 125th.
Yep, that all got put on hold with the with COVID, in 2020, and so I think the last time I was actually in this building was probably 2018-ish, somewhere in there.
Cool.
So even that was 6 years ago. And so,
Well, and to that end, I mean, this is a historic building in the city. It was built around 1901 by the Santa Fe Railroad Company, and then decommissioned by them, and then donated to the city, and moved over here in the 80s when City Hall was built next door.
Cost $10,000 to move it.
Did it really?
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow! I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Wouldn't cost $10,000. You'd be cost more than $10,000 just to pick it up. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm glad they did though. And so the original plan, when it was the Convention and Visitors Bureau, now Visit Pearland, they were going to put money towards it, and it was going to be matched by the Pearland Historical Society, and then converted into an event space and a museum and things like that.
Right.
Obviously, the pandemic hit. Fundraising efforts on the Historical Society's part were very challenging, and the CVB funds were needed in hospitality to help keep
hotels
going. And so
the right thing to do with that, by the way.
Exactly, right. And so we faced a situation where building still wasn't being used, And so we said, wow, we could use it. We can use PEG funds to recondition it. And how cool would it be to be able to sit in a piece of history in Pearland,
Right.
And use it for modern day purposes?
Absolutely.
And we're 6 years, 5 years later, finally coming to that.
Yeah, and so Josh, talk
realization.
about the very front room. That
Sure.
what's the plan there?
Yeah, and in time we'll be able to provide tours, but this building is still sort of structured as the original train depot that it was. And the front 3 rooms are 2 waiting rooms, the men's and women's waiting rooms, separated by the ticketing booth.
Right.
So the very front room will create a sort of historical, what do you call a small museum? A mini museum?
Mini museum with some artifacts.
Right.
From
we're going to
our,
work
from
with the
our
Historical
city's
Society
history.
from
Right.
that. We'll set it up for a reception area where we can greet people. And then the middle spaces will be office space. And then back here we'll have studio and more office space.
Right.
And so we're trying to preserve as much of the original, feel of this building while still making it,
Right, functional.
usable and comfortable.
Yeah.
So stay tuned because we will have more exciting things about this.
Well, the good news is if you drive by, you see fresh coat of paint on it.
Right.
Yeah, the shrubs have all been cleaned up around it. The trees are all doing well.
New roof.
New roof. They shored up the platform, that was out here. I think it had a lot of rot and those types of things. So the railings and all of that have been shored up.
I did
and fixed
struggle
up.
with, so you can't see it on camera, but the ceiling, we flattened it.
Right.
It was the most magnificent popcorn, like the styrofoam popcorn with glitter in it.
Oh, Lord.
Like it sparkled. It was magical. And I wanted to keep it, and somebody talked me out of it. Probably a good thing. I mean, this is much more appropriate. But
Thank you, Joe.
yeah. It was such a good look, though. It's like, man,
I don't like glitter.
That is a time. This thing was just a time capsule. So I would have loved to have been here when the chamber renovated it in the first place. Because golly,
Yeah, and I can't remember how long the chamber was in it. Somebody will know that. I just, off the top of my head, I can't remember when they moved in here.
I think they moved in. I want to say it's on the moniker outside. Does it say 87 or 88?
That sounds right.
It's something like that.
So a
it's
good
about
30
the same
years.
time that City Hall was
So
built.
30 years.
30 years.
They were
yeah.
here 30
Yep.
years. Okay.
And
Excellent.
we hope to be here for at least 30 more or something. We'll see.
All right. Well, let's
Yeah, let's get into this. Speaking of building things,
Yes.
we just celebrated building something
We
brand
did.
spanking new.
We did. Well, it is brand new. It just took us a bit to get it open and get it new. This has been a long time coming. To live as a human, you've got to have a couple of elements.
Sure.
Air and water, and I want to give
Vital.
Very vital. You got to have clean air, clean water to be able to survive. And I want to give my predecessor, Mayor Reed, a few moments here because, as a man that was here since 65, I believe, and he knew the city was going to grow and worked hard to make sure that we had the elements necessary to have a growing and vibrant city. And one of those was water.
Yep.
And I remember being on council in the mid-'90s when I think he was on Gulf Coast Water Authority Board. It was a different name at that point in time, and they ended up merging together with Gulf Coast. And so I'll just use Gulf Coast for today. And brought to the city the opportunity to purchase the rights to the rights, if you will, for 10 million gallons a day for our city. And so I remember.
And that was what year? That was 90?
Somewhere around 97,
Yeah.
I believe. And so I remember, it was so vital, and you knew you were poised for growth. You knew that it was just a matter of time before the city,
That was
exploded.
before Shadow Creek even.
Oh, well before Shadow Creek. Silver Lake was really budding and growing up, and the Beltway had just been completed in '96, the east-west portion of it, and that's really, at that moment, is when we skyrocketed with some of our growth. And so I remember it was like we needed to buy up, rights as much as we could to make sure that we had water for our future. So I remember he led the council in our city to get that 10 million gallons a day. And then fast forward somewhere in 07 or 08 timeframe, I was on the council then as well, 04 through 2010. And during that time, we purchased an additional 10 million gallons a day, the rights to that.
Because then the growth in Shadow Creek was going. You knew
We had the growth, and we knew we were going to need the water.
Yeah.
Annexation laws were a little bit different back in then, and so we had a lot of ETJ to go, and so
Extraterritorial jurisdiction.
yeah. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough water to serve an ultimate city of a certain size, and so
you don't want to get behind on that.
you never want to be behind. You want to be in front of it. You want to be, if you're going to be anything, you're going to be right on top of it, or just a hair behind, and moving in that direction. So we did that, and then before I left council in 2010, we actually purchased the site where the brand new surface water treatment plant is located, out off of Kingsley or 48, just south of Magnolia Parkway. And so we purchased that. It's right next to a take point on the water canal and Mustang Bayou. And there was a big hole in the ground. It was a big sand pit operation. And so we said, that could always be converted into a large pool and pond to be used, and then obviously treated, and then ultimately into the system. And so, so it's been kind of cool, even in my career here with the city and city council, and now as mayor, I've had a vote and a hand in some pretty strategic points that have now led us to the surface water treatment plant. And it's exciting that we opened that plant, and we dedicated it and all that this week, and
got to drink the first glass of water.
Yeah, got to drink some water out of it, and it was great to see all that. Now, this has been a long time coming. A lot of people have wondered, what took so long and why did it take so long?
Sure.
Number one, it's just a super large project to get done. They take years to build, years to design, years to build, and years to get done. Take into consideration all of this was started in the midst of a pandemic. So then we had logistical issues, getting supply chain and getting everything in, which drove it behind schedule. The good news is, while it was behind schedule because of supply chain, it never went over budget.
And it was 170-ish million dollars by the time everything's said and done.
Right.
I say that casually, but that is to date the largest project that's been completed in the city of Pearland. There is a larger project, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little later on. But $170 million is a shocking amount of money.
It's a staggering amount of money, but at the same time, it's now cost that's there.
Right.
That water daily is ours.
Right.
To take, use, treat, put into the system. And then on the back end of it, it's taken us a while to get through TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality.
Yep.
All of these plants have to be approved by them and certified by them and everything else. And at the state level, and they're about 400 or 500 people light that they need. And because of that, anything that's going through them is just getting delayed. And so we finally got, flipped the switch that we could put it into the system and go. We had been treating water, putting it back into the stream, so we could get the plant operational. They could test the plant, test all the water, test everything, make sure it was working properly. And they finally gave us the thumbs up about 2 weeks ago. And so we've been putting water into the system for the last couple of weeks out of there. And it's just a monumental step in our city's growth and our city's history, and so it's one that we want to celebrate and take a few moments. And what this plant gives us the options to do now is be a little more resilient with our water supply, be diversified with our water supply. Cities that only have one water supply, if there's anything that happens with that supply,
they're stuck.
You're stuck. You're done.
So we have water that we get from the city of Houston from a couple of
Yeah. So the city of Houston water is part of the Trinity River Basin.
Right.
So all of the 2 take points that we have comes out of the Trinity River. We have about and that total. We have 10 million that comes into the Alice Street a day, 10 million gallons a day that comes in there.
Which we're equity owners in.
We're an equity owner in the
That
Southeast Water
Yep.
Plant.
So that's our
up in
water.
Houston. That is our water. We help build that plant. And then on the far west end of our community in the Shadow Creek area, we have a take point that we take or pay, means we
Right.
have to take or we pay for it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So if we take nothing, we still pay for, it's about 1.4,
1.3,
1.4 million gallons a day. We can take upwards of about 6 million there.
Mm-hmm.
Just the difference between the 1.3 and the 6 is a premium price.
Sure.
So it's there for us to use it in the event we need it. But all of that water comes out of the Trinity River Basin. Then we've got somewhere around 10 well sites around the city that the city owns and operates. That gives us about 17 million gallons a day out of the wells. And then this new plant is giving us 10 million gallons a day.
So before
and
the
it's
plant-
out of the Brazos River Basin.
Right. So different.
So
source.
completely,
Yep.
3 different sources of water, 3 different
Yep.
river basins or groundwater, and we have some interconnect ability right now. So we can divert water from these different sources to our city. So if we have a problem in Houston, for example, we can divert
Shut the
water
tap off
and
yep.
shut it off and go. And in fact, we're moving water right now up to that take point in Houston. So all we're taking is our minimum take or pay right now.
Yep.
We're not needing to take the emergency. And that's something that hopefully we can go back and renegotiate with the city of Houston and wean ourselves off of that take point a little bit.
Well,
And have it as an emergency connect only.
And a couple of other benefits, running the surface water treatment plant subsidizes the wells that we have, so we can take pressure off of those wells, give them a break from pumping water all the time. One of the things that, not everybody realizes, but if you remember last summer, not this last summer, summer before last,
Right.
when we went
23.
into, we had that severe drought and we had to go into stage 2 drought restriction. So if you tally up the numbers that we had before the plan, it's roughly 29 million gallons of water that we can produce on a daily basis. We were knocking on the door of 28.5 million gallons.
We were at 98%.
98% capacity. And the terrifying part about that is if you go over capacity, you run the risk of losing pressure in your system, which means don't have pressure at fire hydrants. You may have to issue boil water notices. You might not have pressure in your sink.
Right.
I mean, it takes a couple of days to pressurize the system. So when you start to
Right.
lose pressure in it, it's a very dangerous thing. And so this surface water treatment plant
Yeah, and Josh,
increases that capacity.
so for me, that scenario was posed to me, and so when we created and did the emergency measure to go to step 2, that is something that I have to sign off on.
Sure. Yeah.
And so the issue for me was if we can't fight a fire at a business or a home, I drew the line at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we don't have enough pressure in our lines to fight a fire, save property, potentially save lives, then we're derelict in what we're doing. And we saw an immediate drop,
Yep.
which was good because
We thank God for that. Yeah, that's
that kept our
important.
tanks where we could have pressure and all of those kind of things. It just was an extra long drought, took
Sure.
a lot longer than we always anticipated. But I will say this: we had a well down that had been down for about 7 years. At that same time, that well is now back up producing, I believe, and putting into the system now as well, plus the new surface water treatment plant. So if last summer's drought scenario were to happen
Right now, yeah.
honestly, even going to stage 1, I don't even know if we would have to go to stage 1.
Right. Right.
Okay. Certainly not
stage
stage 2. And so that just gives us more, again, it just gives us that resilience
Yep.
on our water infrastructure. It's very expensive to do that, but it's life-giving, it's life-sustaining. It's the opportunity to save property, save lives, and making sure that we do the right thing for our citizens. And so I'm just glad to see that plant is open and functioning and doing well. And now we kind of turn the corner. We can get all the. I didn't. In fact, when we were over there the other day, I didn't look to see if we had construction guys still there, or if they were gone and all the equipment gone. And
there were a couple
Yeah.
people there.
I'm slated to go back and do a tour.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've done a tour, but to go back and do a tour in a couple of weeks.
Well, and for those playing the at-home game, we do have a virtual tour, a fly through the plant. I highly encourage you to go through it because it's impressive. It is hard to wrap your mind around, at least for me, what $170 million looks like on the ground.
Yeah.
But the work that goes into taking that water, raw water from a river, to water that's suitable for consumption is a really powerful process. It goes through a period where they remove all the solids, and then it gets all separated, and then it goes through these membrane tubes. Which, by the way, the membrane setup, they get crazy small, like smaller than a human hair, small enough to stop bacteria. Blah blah blah. Sean told me if you took a cross section of the membrane tubes, and I don't exactly know how you visualize this, but the membranes tubes inside of the containers, all of them stitched together, cut in a cross section, laid out, would cover 5 acres.
Wow, that's crazy, and it's all housed in a very small building.
Yep.
So that's pretty remarkable.
Yep.
And but I would advise you, hey, go and look at the video of the process, because it starts in the canal like you're a drop of water, and it's going through the plant. We're doing that with a small drone that we've got. So
Joe, can you play the video while we're chatting about this?
And it's an incredible process. In fact, I've asked to take our, what do we call that? Our logo for Pearland Water.
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah, and
Oh yeah, here we
and create an animated version of it,
a caricature,
and put him in the system and let him
that guy.
completely go
See?
through. So
it's there's a lot of work that goes into it. So what you're seeing right now is the water in the canal. In this little pool that they have right there is the first point that the water goes into the system. So it goes in and it goes past these, I always call them scrapers, but they're not. It pulls all the solids, all the any floating debris, anything like that out. And you'll see that there's a lot of blank space here. That's for potential future development. But it goes. What are these 2 tanks? Are those the sediment chambers, Joe?
No, that's going to remove all the mud.
Okay, that's the coagulation piece, right?
Yeah.
Now
comes the membranes, I believe.
Yeah. And then everything happens in the pre-treatment structure. That's right. So they put a special what do they call it? A coagulant.
Yeah.
And they turn the water up. It's called flocculating, right?
That's right.
Yep. And all the solids fall out.
You didn't know you were coming into a chemistry
right.
a chemistry lesson.
I find it really fascinating, though.
Right.
I mean, it's really impressive. This part where we're going over right now, those big separation trays where it pushes water up. So it pushes the clean water up, pushes the solids down to the bottom, and then they get fed off to the belt press. Just that piece.
Yeah.
It's a night and day difference. The water's still not safe to drink at that point.
Look at this building and
Yeah.
the structure that's in there is just incredible.
These are all of the membrane tubes. All the water passes through all those tubes. They do have to be backflowed, so they have to put negative pressure against them to push them out every once in a while. And then these are basically
Filters.
giant Brita filters, carbon filters.
Right.
Fun fact,
$600,000
to replace the filters on them.
Right.
Fortunately, not a thing we have to do very often, but
Right.
they're, massive and process a lot of water. So half the water goes through the carbon filters, half the water goes through gas chlorine, which we're passing through right now.
Right.
And that all mixes together and ideally creates the monochloramines.
Yep.
Is that sound right, Joe?
That's right.
Yep.
So fast forwards, and we've got a ground storage tank that's a 2 or 2.5 million
2.5 million, yeah.
gallons there. We've got space to put in another ground storage tank right there.
That's right, yeah.
In this same place, we've got I mean, here's where it comes through and is about
Yep.
to go into the system itself.
Yeah, so it
It
feeds.
leaves this building and into that large pipe and
Yep.
goes into the system.
That's right. Yeah, so it goes from ground storage tank to here, and then right now we're feeding up to two different to the Kirby well
Right.
as well as the 521 well.
We had an emergency repair work that had to be done on the Kirby well, and so it was down for a little bit. And so it comes out, goes to the road right away right there, and then goes to all points in the system. So what you don't see is this building or this plant has room to come back and add another 10 million gallons a day. So ultimately, we can do 20 million gallons a day from this plant.
Which is wild.
And we'll determine at what stage we do the other 10, but it won't cost the same amount of money to do the second 10. We've put a lot of infrastructure into this building contemplating the second 10.
Yep.
And so far less money to add the additional
Yep.
10.
You notice in the membrane room there are open racks. That's for the potential expansion. So the things we'd have to add are the pre-treatment basins, so the flocculation chambers, and then the
Right.
sedimentation.
So what you don't see is what's underground.
Right.
And I was going to say, most of the money in this plant you can't see.
That's
It's-
right.
It's below ground. It's infrastructure that's out there below ground. The last time I asked this question, I'll use this, what will it cost us to add the additional 10? And this was probably a year and a half ago that I asked that question, and the number then was in the 60 million range. So we spent
Fraction of the cost.
Yeah, we've spent 175 million on this structure, but to add the additional 10 would be about 60 in today's dollars.
Right.
And so again, if that's 2 years from now or 10 years from now or whenever, that number is obviously going to be different, but that's in today's dollars. We've actually talked with some of our sister cities, Manville, Iowa Colony, and others who need surface water, and will need to find it somewhere. We are their best source for that water. So we've been having very preliminary at this point, high-level talks of when to bring them in. Do they take 2 million? Do they take 5 million? What's that number, to get us there?
Sure.
The water that we're taking out of the Southwest Water Plant in Houston, that transaction in the mid-2000s was $40 million. So that's the cheapest surface water that we will probably ever have.
Absolutely.
And we won't do away with that simply because it gives us the resiliency and the redundancy that we talked about. But at that cost, we can't replicate that 10 million for $40 million a day. $40 million. We can't replicate it.
Sure.
This is 170 for 10, and so we can't replicate it. And so it's best for us to keep that. It's amazing. It comes through a 96-inch pipe that comes out of the plant
Yes.
and snakes down to something in the 50-something range, and then by the time it gets to the city, it's in about a 36-inch pipe that comes into the city over to the Alice Street. So it's amazing.
Yeah, that's impressive.
To see that. So, but that's what's happening in water. It's just a huge milestone for our city. The largest project in the history of our city. We are also completing right now John Hargrove Environmental Center. Also, we call it JHEC. Over on Magnolia.
Right next to the nature center.
The water treatment facility, wastewater treatment facility that's there. You've seen a lot of construction going on in the last couple of years. That project is now wrapping up. There are 6 treatment basins there. All 6 are now functioning and working. And we added capacity there, about 3 million gallons a day of wastewater treatment there. Again, growing city, and you're usually playing catch up in those types of things. So that project is wrapping up. Again, we have to get through the TCEQ phases, and anytime you're building new and you're also retroing and doing existing, it really gets to be a nightmare on the compliance side of things and keeping all, because you've got construction debris and construction things that are going on at the same time that you're trying to treat affluent. And so it's been a little bit of a struggle there, but our guys will get there and we'll get that one finished up and cleaned up. And the good news is we actually have the capacity, and we're using that capacity today. We just got to go through the steps with the regulatory, agencies to get it finished.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the Bailey plant or the Bailey well coming back online. One of the unique features you may have seen as you drive over the Bailey Bridge, there are these sort of short stack tower-looking things, like 6 of them, maybe. I think 6.
Well,
of
very similar to what you saw with the surface water treatment plant.
Correct, yeah. And those, so one of the things that they found about the Bailey well is that it is high in mineral count.
So if you live near that plant and you've had mineral problems,
yeah. But it's mainly, you get
one of
the
the
taste and the,
Right.
it tastes earthy and things like that. Well, they added a filtration system, right?
Right.
So you shouldn't have that experience as much anymore. It's the first time in the state of Texas that system has been used. Whole
Right.
state, right here in
Right.
Pearland.
yeah,
So-
it's pretty amazing. And before we move off of water, I do want to talk a little bit about our water towers.
Sure, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
You know, if you drive by some of the water towers, especially the one there at the Bailey Road Bridge across
Yep.
the railroad tracks, you'll see a Pearland Oiler logo on one side, and you'll see the Rail Cats from
Cat.
Turner High
Yep.
School on the other side. When you drive over by Dawson High School on Cullen, one of the water towers there now has the Dawson Eagle
The
logo
big one.
there. So as we are upgrading and going through necessary TCEQ-driven rules and regulations to make sure that we're rehabbing and making sure that those towers, those water towers are up to code and all those kind of things. Instead of painting our logo, we're painting the logos for the high schools so we can celebrate them. So I'm not sure the exact date, but sometime in the next year or so, we'll be across 288 and doing one of them over in the
Shadow
Shadow Creek
Yep.
area, and so we'll put the Shadow Creek Sharks on there and
Yeah.
celebrate that high school as well. And so that actual request came to me from a teacher at Pearland ISD. She said, when you drive across Texas, and this is true, when you're driving across small town Texas, the first thing you see on a small town is the water tower.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah,
you
that's
look
right.
up, it's generally got the high school mascot, or hey, it's the home of the state champion Tigers, or
Yep.
Whatever is going on there, and they do all those kind of things, and that's part of that small town charm and small town feel, and you're celebrating the accomplishments of our high schools and our kids, and that sense of community around those. And so it was a great suggestion, and
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we paint these water towers anyway, so it's a
Right.
cost that's already built
It's already
in.
baked in.
And so, we can put those logos on there, and it's not an additional cost to do that. And so I like the suggestion, and we've got it into practice and into reality now. So it's
Well, and they came
kinda
out
cool.
really great.
They did.
If you, especially, I mean, all 3 of them are fantastic. But I'm especially impressed with the Rail Cats,
Yeah.
just because of the shape and the colors and everything. Another fun fact: those are hand painted. And it's because of the type of coating that they have to use on the tanks.
Right.
It's a special epoxy, and if you spray it, it atomizes and it doesn't.
So I'll let you crawl up there. I'm not.
I did go up on the, I'm pointing back this way because it's right back here.
Yeah.
The one we have here at Liberty,
City
which
Hall,
was one of
right.
the shorter tanks. It's only 120 feet off the ground. The
Oh.
other one, the Bailey tank is like 210, I think, something like that.
It's huge.
It is massive. And after I did the Liberty tank, I said, I'm good. I don't need to do that again.
Right.
We crawled inside of it, which is really impressive because they had to paint the inside as well.
Right.
And I mean, with like roller brushes, paint the inside. So it is, of course, we contract with a specialized company that this is what they do for a profession. But seeing the work in action is really impressive.
So let's move off water. What's next?
Yeah, we're going to talk about. We do have other projects. So Independence Park, phase 2 of
Independence Park,
the renovations of Independence Park are coming up
Right.
pretty dang soon.
So a lot of people will say, we spent all this money from the 2007 bond program. We redid the park. We didn't get anything for it.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that people understand that that was only phase one of an ultimate park.
Right.
And so
Phase one of 3 phases.
phase one of 3 phases. And so the ultimate master plan, has multiple phases, multiple ways to do it. Go to the voters to get this done. And so instead of doing it all at one time and being, some $40 million number, it was, let's do this in phases. So the first phase, where the hill, the stage, those types of things are being, were put in. While those are things that you see, there's a lot of things underground between drainage and those types of things that you don't see. And so I wanted to make sure that people are aware there's way more that went into that bond program in phase one than what you see. So now in 2023, we went to the voters for phase two. I think it's about $16 million.
Yeah, 15 and a half.
And one of the things that was very important to me, we went to the voters, and I wanted to make sure that we had public input in this phase two.
Yeah.
So I think we have our first stakeholder meeting here in the next week or so that we've been reaching out to. In addition to that, I believe we have a survey that people can take.
Yep.
And put your thoughts and your inputs into what we want to see in that park. I know there's been a lot of people, well, you took the pool out and those types of things. And I'll say, when I moved here in 1977, that pool was 1 year old, because that park, Independence, was built and opened in 1976. And so that was the pool that I grew up, going to,
Sure.
Here in Pearland, but it had outlived its useful life. We were spending more money on that pool than anywhere close to revenue, coming back into it.
So you mentioned that I remember very clearly the summer where they announced the closure of the demolition of the pool, and just candidly speaking, my knee-jerk reaction was like, but. So I learned how to swim in that pool, and I was a lifeguard at that pool.
Yeah.
And so similar sort of scenario. There's a lot of sentimental value there,
and it's real. That's real.
It is real.
Yeah.
We also have a responsibility to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and the reality was the operational cost for the last summer it was in operation is about $165,000, $160,000 to run the pool, and over the entire summer that we accrued that cost, that expense, the pool generated $3,000 in revenue. So taxpayers paid, $157,000. So when we look at some things, we look at cost recovery, and it's really hard to justify keeping something, because that $3,000 is essentially 5 to 10 people visiting the pool every day.
Right.
And
so we just didn't have the number of people coming to it at the end of the day. But part of phase two, do we want a wave pool? Do we want a splash pad? Do we want something back in there that we can do? We want, from our park standpoint, a better cost recovery model. So if you have birthday parties and those types of things, you have a better place to come to. So put your thoughts on that into that survey. For example, we have a lot of fun runs. We have a lot of 3Ks and 5Ks. And if we have a 5K, well, most 3Ks, we have to get outside the park in order to host them. So we have to end up closing roads down and those types of things. One of our goals is to have a 3K or a 5K all contained within the park. So the trail system and those types of things. The pond that's over on the corner of John Lizer and Pearland Parkway will be enlarged. That was done many years ago, and this will be enlarged. One of our hopes is to be able to have paddle boating and canoeing in the pond, as well as some kind of a pier for fishing and having that as a leisure park to go in. Incidentally, fun fact, we have about 278,000 visitors a year to Independence Park currently.
Which is a staggering number.
It's a huge number. That's where all of our big events are for 4th of July.
Right, just Celebration of Freedom alone is 12, 15,000 people.
We went over 15,000. I think we went over 16,000 people in the park in July 4th of this year. And so, we want to make some enhancements to that park. That's what this phase two is about. We want your input.
That's the big thing.
And it is really important, because it's your park.
Yep.
and we want your input, and all that's going to go into, you know, a big sausage making, and we'll determine exactly how and what we want to do. And but it's a park that we want everyone to use. It's a park that that will be here once it's completed.
Yep.
You know, many years. Schedule on it still a couple of years out for,
It's going to take
you know,
time.
for going under construction. But we wanted to highlight. Go take the survey.
Do we have the link to the survey,
I just
Joe?
put it in the chat.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, it's
put
in
it
the chat.
Yeah.
So you can click that link. So this will precede the stakeholder committee meetings, which will precede the design, which will
Correct.
precede all the construction.
But we want
And
the
so-
input.
And we want to get it right.
Right.
You know, we want to build a park that the community sees value in for
Right.
the life of the community, not just for this period of time.
And since we're talking about the bond program, I really wasn't on our list to talk about, but I'll give a brief update. So at Hickory Slough, the Hickory Slough Soccer Complex,
Yeah.
Phase
Yeah,
2
yeah.
was in that bond program as
Correct.
well.
Yep.
And that is one that we, the council, said, hey, can we move the payment for that park, instead of doing it through bonds?
Mm-hmm.
The voters have approved it. We can go do the bonds. Can we move that to the Pearland Economic Development Corporation to pay for? That gets it off of debt service and the property tax, puts
Which
it
is EDC's funded by sales tax.
sales tax.
right?
So their half cent sales tax will fund that. They have taken that up, so that's going to help us on our debt service side and our property tax on some dollars that we wouldn't have realized otherwise. And
So where we would have spent 14, 15 million, or issued 14 or 15 million dollars worth of debt
Right.
to do Hickory Slough, we won't issue that now.
and I believe the EDC is looking to do that in cash.
Right.
So we get a lot of pushback on debt. That's actually a project that's being done out of cash
Sure.
through the EDC, and that project is in design. It's part of there's a detention pond that will be built. It's the phase 2 of the detention that's there now, and then once that project is complete, the soccer complex will come in behind it. So.
And actually, we just talked about that project as well as all the other parks projects. And what was the other thing we covered? Facilities. Golly.
Right.
In a capital
Workshop.
improvement project workshop this
Workshop.
last Monday.
Yeah, just Monday night.
2 days ago.
We do that periodically where we talk about these things. And so it's real important that complex ultimately built, we can have really good tournaments, bringing value, bringing money, bringing outside money into
Sure.
the community, which is why the EDC could justify
Yep.
going and spending that expense with them. It's very clear in the type B monies that they can spend that on parks.
Yeah.
So it made it aligned it very well, and instead of doing debt for that, we're doing cash, and we're not hitting our debt service for that.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, you know, when we talk about, when I think about it, being stewards of the budgets that are entrusted to us, part of that is, you know, getting the maximum benefit from every dollar that
Absolutely.
comes through our doors. And that's a sterling example, in my opinion, of doing that. Just like we do with TIP projects or the Transportation Improvement Plan or tax increment reinvestment zones, right? We have whole trails that the city taxpayer hasn't paid a dime for because we've been able to secure resources in other ways.
Correct.
And still provide those resources, you know, those features to the community.
Correct.
And so I highly encourage you, if you see a project and you think, man, I wonder how that was, you know, how we paid for that, or whatever the case may be.
Bring it to us.
Bring it to us. Ask the question, because you'd be surprised, you know, how all of these things kind of get stitched together.
Right.
And I mean, we talk about it all in council meetings and in workshops and things like that. Those tend to be a little dense and a little long-winded. So feel free to come to us with those questions. We're happy to answer those.
Let's talk
Yeah.
Old Town Site real quick.
Yeah,
And then we'll
that
get
was
to
the
the
other thing. Yeah.
questions.
Old Town Site Revitalization Plan.
Right.
What an exciting time to be alive.
You know, it's a long time coming. You know, the Old Town Site. I don't know if we have a picture of. In fact,
Yeah, we actually, behind us,
is the old.
there's a snapshot of it.
In fact, the watercolor that's in that is the snapshot of the Old Town Site. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's about Austin Street or
It is Austin,
Austin
West.
to Galveston.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Orange down to Walnut.
Mhm.
Obviously, the cross streets in the middle being 35 or Main Street and Broadway. And so that area, it's been that's where the Pearland started. That's where this depot at one time was housed.
Right on the railroad track.
And so right there by the railroad tracks. And so, we've spent a lot of money over the years back down into that area, putting in sidewalks, doing some drainage projects, and a few other things, along the way down there. And so, in fact, we got a drainage project for one of the quadrants down there that's in design work right now. It's west of the track down around, Walnut. For example, we need to make sure that we shore up some drainage in the area. And so, it's been a long-term plan and a long time coming. That we actually go into the Old Town site and how do we revitalize it? How do we bring it to life? How do we do something there that can be a shining star and a different destination for our city?
Sure.
You've got Pearland Town Center. You've got other places that people can go and do for like new shops and various things. But how can we make something here that people really want to see? How can we make it walkable? How can we connect trails from the Mary's Creek Trail all the way over to the trail that runs along Town Ditch, which goes back to Clear Creek and those types of things. And so we've been going through some stakeholder events and stakeholder opportunities. We had a lot of the community, people who live there, work there, have businesses there, have been providing input. Hopefully here, not too long, we'll start seeing some artist renderings of a few things that might be some ideas. I think the survey is still live.
It is, yeah.
I think that's what was up. Hit that QR code and you can go in and take that survey. Those types of surveys usually take 5 or 6 minutes to go through. You can provide some input to it, but we want something that, it's ours, it's Pearland. It talks about who we are, that it lasts a long time, generations.
Yep.
So what we do down in there is generational. It's an opportunity to do something for our cultural arts, places as well, and call it our home. It's our hometown. It's where our hometown started, and so we want to make sure that we're reinvesting the dollars wisely, in the right way with the infrastructure to do things the right way, and really have it another place in our city that people can be proud of.
Yep.
The other thing is some of our rules and regulations. If you're building a brand new subdivision, rules and regulations are pretty easy to follow.
Sure.
This is an old subdivision. I mean, think about it.
Yeah, it really
that,
is.
That
you
plat
think about how
map
it's
that you
laid out.
see,
Yeah.
that is an old subdivision. And so our rules and regulations for new subdivisions don't fit
Right.
what goes on down there. So if you're trying to do anything in the Old Town site, you really have a lot of conflict in coming in and pulling permits, setbacks, those types of things going on. So we want to really dig into the I call it the wonky side of it and all of our rules and regulations, but we want to make it more user friendly, that it's not a greenfield. We're trying to revitalize.
Well, and that's that's to me one of the most interesting parts of the challenge. So this plan, it kind of starts with like, okay, if money was no object, if there were no obstacles, what would you do? And you start to whittle down into, okay, now what's really realistic? And the reality is, as a governing body, there's no way we can do it all on our own. We can help regulatory wise and things like that, but it's going to need private investment. It's going to need,
but that private investor is not going to come in and do something if the rules don't make it feasible.
And if the vision's not there.
And the vision's not there. And so, we've got some places in town that are pretty rough in the Old Town site. We have some places in the Old Town site that are hidden gems that are great. And in fact, as we went through this and our consultants went through it, most of the housing in the Old Town site, for the most part, is in really good shape.
Yep.
It's in good repair. It's in good shape. Doesn't mean that there's not some challenged ones along the way, but the majority of it is in pretty good shape. We need to make sure that our infrastructure is keeping up with it. We've had some flooding issues in the Old Town site. We want to make sure that we're addressing those types of things. You have Sullivan Brothers and the new homes that are going up right there by post office or behind Dairy Queen. That's always two good markers that people
Yeah.
know exactly
Yeah.
where you're talking about. They're moving along very, very well. And that's kind of a catalyst to get that quadrant of Old Town site going. With that was a public-private partnership. They put some money into some of the infrastructure. Our EDC put some money into the infrastructure to upgrade drainage and some water and sewer lines in that area.
Create some on-street parking, which is
Create some on-street parking, which, you know, and again, and created a set of rules
Yep.
that didn't have your normal setbacks.
Right.
And so with that, it's a catalyst to see things happen. So bringing new people to live there, and hopefully it'll become pedestrian friendly, friendly to walk. Now we just need to, what's the plan look like? And I've been saying this from day one as we do this plan, whatever the plan is, it has to be implemented, but more importantly, it has to be implementable.
Right. Yep.
It can't just be a pie in the sky and a pretty picture. It actually has to be implementable.
Yep.
And so it's real important that we get that right.
Well, and you know, one of the things that strikes me, even in the Old Town site, you know, unlike other older towns like ours that have a traditional town square with the courthouse in the middle and things like that, you know, that gives you a centralizing focal point, right? It gives you a natural place to create that pedestrian friendly area and to build around it. And we don't really have that as a feature. And so how do you know, modernize what's there, make it appealing to new visitors while maintaining that the old town site charm?
Correct.
And creating something that's that sews all of those things
Right.
together, and that's a really challenging thing.
It is, but I'm excited to see where it goes and how we get there. And I tell people, this isn't a brand new subdivision that gets built in 4, 5, 6 years or 10 years. This is going to be a long time coming. There's going to be different phases to it and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, it'll be worth it for our generations to come. Our next generation is going to have something that's really good. The people that have investments in that area for their home or their business and all those kind of things, they're going to be proud that they live in the Old Town site and those types of things. So let's get to the questions. I know we had a question that came in.
Our first one was specifically about
the intersection right here at Liberty and Broadway.
Yep.
There's a sign there. So a brand new right turn lane has just been installed by the school. That was part of what they had to do to go in there. The sign that's up there is
It shows left turn only.
is
straight
obviously
right
for the 2 lanes that were there.
Correct, yeah.
And so it's my understanding, Jimmy, and we'll get back to you specifically on this, but it's my understanding the new signage has been ordered. We just don't have it yet. But we can respond back to this with more details. So let me track that down and get an exact answer on when we think that sign will be replaced and
Yep.
back up.
But just for the traveling public, so now it's left turn is left turn, or left lane is left turn only. Middle lane is left turn or straight.
Straight.
So it's dual left turns,
Right.
and then right lane is right turn only.
Right.
So just
Very
use caution.
Right.
And
I see a
keep it
question
local.
here, Miss Catherine. There's a restaurant behind my house. Their garbage bin pickup for the house is behind my fence, closest to my bedroom window. Their trash pickup daily is around 4 a.m. to 4:30. Who do I contact? So, I mean, that would be Lori Rodriguez to get us in touch with Frontier to see what the schedule could be.
If it is Frontier, if it's here in Pearland,
If it's
should be
if it's in the city,
Yeah.
then it's Frontier. So, Catherine, I'm going to ask you if you would send me an email directly. That way, we can capture your email address instead of doing it here for the world to see. If you would send me an email at kcole@pearlandtx.gov, we can put that in the
Put it
chat
in the
as well.
comments, yep.
If you'll send me a direct email, I'll make sure that we include the right staff on there
Yep.
and see how we can make that situation a little bit better. We'll also include Frontier. And when you send that email, send us your address, send us the restaurant so we know exactly who and where we're talking about, so we can be,
Hope that
so we don't have
works.
to spend time doing that. We can go right to it and hopefully get you an answer very quickly on how we can maybe help with that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have another question right now. I do have a question for you.
Okay.
What are you dressing up for as Halloween? For Halloween?
I'm actually going as the mayor tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's a good idea.
I'll be in
It's a good
full suit. How often do I wear full suit?
Once a week, I would say.
Maybe.
Maybe you might wear a sport coat. Well, you're wearing one now, but
Right.
you got a chamber lunch tomorrow. Is that what you're?
No, I'm actually speaking at a I'm actually speaking at an international conference down at Hilton Americas tomorrow afternoon, and so and I'm doing new employee experience,
Well, there you go.
and so
Yeah.
I'm going to be dressed as the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Halloween candy?
I love candy corn. Only during Halloween.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Shocking,
I don't.
right?
Yeah, I don't even know what to do with that information. Do you like those little pumpkins that are like, it's just like a solid ball of
Yeah.
plastic? Yeah.
Yeah.
You like those things?
Yeah.
That is fascinating. I try candy corn every year, and I'm like, nah, I still can't. I don't know. There's just something about like, I think it's more in the name than anything, because
I
I'm
like
thinking.
them. Now, they are addicting, so you can only have them during this time of year.
Right. Well, do they sell them?
They do.
Other time of year? I don't.
They do,
Oh,
because
okay.
you can kind of get them around Christmas as well,
Okay,
but this time of year, but because otherwise, my exercise won't keep up with that.
Well, you just got to eat them while you exercise, right?
Exactly.
We do have a couple of other events coming up. So we have Hometown Christmas
Oh, here we
coming
go.
up.
We got a question from Miss Franco. The trees on the median on Hughes Ranch Road need some watering. Ooh, I see a water system, but never see it on. That's a good question, Mary. Let us look into our right-of-way folks, because I know we've got irrigation for those trees.
We do. Yep.
And so we need to check into that and make sure they're being irrigated. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And we will take that to right of way, but residents can always reach out directly to the Public Works. It's right of way that's a part of our Public Works department. They have their email address is 1900-1900 at pearlandtx.gov. So all of our low-hanging limbs that are blocking stop signs and anything in the median, if it's garbage or mowing related or things like that, all go to that location.
And we do have, we have a right-of-way, we have a crew that does right-of-way, we have an outside crew that comes in and does the mowing, they pick up trash, they do those kind of things, but obviously they're not there every day.
No.
So if you see things like Josh was talking about, please reach out to us. It's kind of hard to have eyes on every square foot of the city at one time. So Mary, thank you for the heads up on that. We'll look into that and get back to you. And the great thing about the Facebook and the Facebook Live, we can actually come back.
Sure.
And here's how, what, and where we resolve the issues. And I know, just like last month, I think we actually put clips.
Yep, that's right.
Of the answers back into the comments. So people had the answers right there. We don't want to assume. Sometimes we get questions ahead of time, so we don't assume that all of those questions that the people who ask the questions are watching live. So we want to go back and make sure that we give the answers to them. That's really what this is about: is having our interaction and engagement with the public. One of the things, and I'm kind of gearing up a little bit. For meeting with new employees tomorrow, is I get the chance to go in and meet with new employees and kind of give them, my take on things, and it really comes down to our culture and who we are as a city. We have the city government and the city itself as an entity, and what, where, and how. Who are we? What is our culture? And our expectations. And at the end of the day, we're a people organization.
That's right.
The majority of our budget goes to people, because you can't pull off and do all these kind of things. You can't police without policemen.
That's
you can't
right.
put out fires unless you have people. You can't
pig water lines without.
You can't go and repair and do certain things unless you have people. And so it's a people person. It's a people place. But we take care of people.
That's right.
We serve people. And I always remind our folks in the new hires, I say, look, everybody here has a direct report. You report to someone. Everyone has a supervisor, correct? And I said, and some of you being hired may supervise people. You may be hiring in as a director. You may be hiring in as a supervisor, but you report to someone. Everyone in the organization reports to someone else. So then I asked the question, if I'm the top elected official at the city, who's my boss? and I will tell you.
Leave a note in the comments if you know the answer.
I will tell you, 99 out of 100, they get this right, which is good.
Yep.
And they're quick to say it's the people we serve.
That's
and
right.
I said, exactly. So at the end of the day, the people we serve, the 135,000 people that call Pearland home, are our boss.
Yep.
They're my boss. They're your boss. They're all of ours. And so I say to people, when you have an interaction with a member of the public, treat that interaction just like it's your supervisor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you have that interaction that's solid that way, that interaction will be good.
Yep.
It'll be positive. Even if the answer sometimes to the citizen is a no, we can't do that.
Yep.
But it's how you go about doing it. And when that happens, our trust and everything else go up, our interaction, our customer service gets better. So we have that opportunity. It's just a reminder, when you have that interaction, remember, if you've got the logo on your shirt and you get, questioned or asked, or you're in somebody's front yard, or you're on the phone in water billing, that is your boss.
That's right.
So that interaction is key.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think about. You think about our organization, the 930-ish employees that we have. You treat it like a business, and what an industry, where we have 9 different, businesses all grouped under one.
Horrible business model.
Horrible business model.
You wouldn't go into business.
Multiple lines of business, in each of those things with 130,000 customers. And there's no other business model that can accomplish these sorts of things, which I think is part of the people that are attracted to this industry. That's part of the appeal, is that we are people working with people for the sake of people. I mean, we're building. You're right. You can't build community without hands actually doing the work.
And even these types of things, when I see a comment by Mary about trees in a median that need some water, and again, as much as I drive around the community and I try to take different routes all the time to see different things, you still can't be everywhere at one time. None of our employees can be everywhere at one time, and so it takes our people to see something. It takes our citizens to see something. Hey, quick call in. And we want to get on that as soon as possible. That's part of being customer service.
And we appreciate those engagements.
That's part of being citizen-centric.
Yep.
And it is important that we do. Will we get it right 100% of the time? I'll tell everybody, we're human.
Sure.
We're going to make mistakes, and we're not going to get everything right, perfect all the time. We're not perfect people.
Yeah.
But our want and our desire is to raise that standard and raise that bar. Yep. It's something that I, along with council, we've asked, and we want to raise that bar, and we want to get excellent at how we deal with people, because it is a people person, it is a people organization that serves people. Yep. And because we're here to serve you, and it is important that we do that. Yep. And so I just, it's always fun to come and do this. The last thing I'm going to say, and we'll end our podcast for this particular month, but it is now, it's a little after 7 o'clock on Wednesday the 30th. The polls for the day have closed. Yep. So you have 2 days of early voting. Very important election for November the 5th, next week, on Tuesday. But polls are open tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday for early voting. Yep. It is real important that you exercise your voice. That is your voice. It's funny, I did a podcast for a church here some time ago, and they aired it starting this last weekend. And they said, what would you say to the person who says, my one vote doesn't matter? I'm going to give you a quick story, and then we'll be out. In 2020, the city of Dickinson, literally, just right down the road,
Yeah.
City of Dickinson had a mayor's race, just like I was elected in 2020. We had a mayor's race. So same year, 2020. There was 3 or 4 people in the race. Ended up in a runoff. So 2 people ended up in a runoff. And when that runoff election happened, total votes cast for the 2020.
Interesting.
So year 2020, 2020 votes cast. Each one of them got 1,010.
What?
1,010. Dead split.
Holy.
That election was won and lost on a coin flip. You
and
tell
it could
me,
have been won or lost
you-
by one
one
vote.
vote. You tell me your vote doesn't matter? It matters.
That is.
And so I
Shocking.
know it's a national election. What I'm going to ask you is go and do it. Our turnout in Brazoria County is historic right now.
Yep.
We had about 68.5% of Brazoria County turnout 4 years ago. I think going into today, we were in the 45 or so percent in Brazoria County.
With 3 days left to go in early
With
vote.
3 days left to
Yep.
go, and so if we are tracking somewhere in the 10,000, so that's another 30. I mean, we're going to be knocking on the door of 60% by the time election day gets here. So can we see an 80% turnout? And
think it's
we
possible.
talk about this all the time, that people don't get out and vote, but they are. So if you don't want to be in the mad rush for election day, you have 7 to 7 both Thursday and Friday to get that done. For the most part, the polls around the county have been reporting it's been very smooth,
Yep.
very timely to get through. But it is important. I know we took a little time to do that, but it is important that you get out and exercise your vote, exercise your voice. Your voice is your vote.
Yep.
And so I ask you to get out and do that. You've got the mayor's race, you've got the presidential race, you've got Senate races, you've got congressional races, you've got judges, all of those kind of things. And don't forget, down the ballot,
Yep.
you've got sheriff's race, you've got, even though some of these are unopposed, you've got county commissioners on the ballot, you have a state rep races in 2 of the districts right here in Brazoria County are both opposed, so you have a race there. These are people that are going to represent you and I and our cities and everything else in Austin. So it's important that you cast that vote.
Yep.
We have drainage district. Those are important races because they help manage our floodwaters. They are great partners with the city and the county. It is important that you get out and vote in every single race. If there's a ballot and there's somebody in the race, make sure that you get up to speed on it. You can download a sample ballot from the just Google Brazoria County elections, Google Harris County elections, same thing for Fort Bend. You can download and print a ballot. You
And
can
see
go
who
and-
all's on that.
You can see
on your
who all's
ballot.
on the ballot.
based on your address.
Google is your friend.
Oh, yeah.
You can go and Google those races and those people. You can see their websites. You can see their Facebook pages. I know very about a short amount of time left, but you can send them private messages. If they don't respond to you, that might be a clue. But most candidates, I've been a candidate. I'll be up on a ballot in a couple of years. It is important that we hear from you.
Sure.
It is very important that we hear from you, and I want to answer your questions, and most candidates do. So get involved, get educated, go vote, exercise your right to vote. Be proud to wear a I voted sticker.
Yeah.
Because as an American, that's the democracy that we all long for, and so.
That's it.
So I wanted to end the Facebook Live today
Yeah,
with go vote.
Thank you. That's a
Go
good.
vote.
That's an important message.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
get out and do it. Educate yourselves,
Educate and go vote. Right.
and then go vote.
Right.
All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us this month. October Talk of the Town. We will
From the train depot.
from the depot. The first
Yeah.
Talk of the Town from the depot. That's
Yeah.
exciting. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see y'all next month.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.